So I waited patiently for the ending of Stranger Things, for I knew the monster at the end of this road was gonna be unfathomably mysterious. But then we got to the actual ending, and needless to say, I felt let down by how tame the monster was. But then it got me thinking, did I expect too much? Did my mind venture into the possibilities and impossibilities of something so grand that it was never something that you could portray to begin with? To conceive something so bizarre and mysterious in your head that I jumped at a conclusion of an entity that could have never possibly existed in a story such as this? This is the ambiguous cosmic horror of Stranger Things. If there's one type of horror that has always fascinated me, it is the horror of the cosmic. The silent terror in realizing that the universe is vast and indifferent, and human meaning fades in its unknowable presence. Cosmic horror is magnificent, not because you know, but no matter what you do, there is no way you can ever know. And this is a structure that cosmic horror demands from any medium. But there exists a problem when you translate this horror onto the screen, and I think Stranger Things might just be the perfect example of the cosmic horror problem. Stranger Things starts off as a genre of horror. It isn't specific. There are many variables of the unknown in the first season, with creature horror and survival horror being the best genres to define the plot. Although there's a mystery forming with the Upside Down, and obviously the missing people, it hasn't escalated yet. It is still pretty local. But then, Stranger Things did something unfathomably undoable. It opened Pandora's box. In episode 1 of season 2, Will steps out of the arcade, and as he is urged to look up, in the sky is a dark cloud that seemingly has some type of mysterious agency. This is the point where the unknowns of the first season turns into something cosmic. But the moment you do this, there is no going back, for the threat in the way it's introduced is not physical anymore, but existential. But here's the problem. The show wants the monster to have attributes of cosmic horror, but the way the story can be told, it could never fully fulfill its definition. You see, most cosmic horror on TV is not technically cosmic horror. They are quasi-cosmic or cosmic adjacent horror, where you bring variables of an unknown into the frame. But by the time we reach the ending, the audience infer human meaning from it, which means the more you know about the mystery, the less cosmic it becomes. True cosmic horror is supposed to be unintelligible, and you can only reach the boundaries of it, but never fully know what it is. And I didn't even realize this until I was doing some research for this video. Even movies like The Mist, which I always thought was true cosmic horror, fails at the final hurdle of the cosmic horror checklist, as it turns into something cosmic adjacent. But that's besides the point, because in Stranger Things, it breaks down even faster. You see, season 2 of Stranger Things does a relatively good job of keeping the threat existential. Will is the only person who knows about the shadow monster, but even in his knowledge, there are no conclusions to be drawn. It is an entity that has no shape or form. And throughout the rest of the season, it remains to be exactly that. The crops are rotting, there are people still missing, and Will is acting weird. All that suggests that there is a common denominator which is riddled with unknown variables. But the reason why it works as cosmic horror is because you could believe this to be an indifferent infection. Yes, people are actively searching for meaning, but they can't quite understand it. They're only flirting around the line of knowledge. And in episode 5, Dustin's probably the first person who shrinks this cosmic horror.
It's a superorganism.
This is the thing that controls everything. It's the brain.
As he names the shadow,
The Mind Flayer.
And in true cosmic horror, this is a big no. You don't name the unknowable. Simply because you have to understand what it is to name it. And if you do, it violates the rules of cosmic horror. But judging by how these rules are kind of like guidelines anyway, I still think the show is fairly cosmic at this point. For one, the Mind Flayer is still an analogy.
Fine, an analogy for understanding whatever the hell this is.
Okay.
Dustin doesn't really come to a conclusion, he simply guesses. It is a theory after all, a theory that may or may not be true. And even after Will is saved, and you do learn about the weaknesses of the Mind Flayer, it still feels circumstantial. And the ending proves that when you see the Mind Flayer looming over Hawkins like a cosmic presence that never fades. There is no reason for you to assign a human meaning here. At least, not yet. This was the time when the fans started theorizing the cosmic nature of the beast. People were guessing the Mind Flayer was a cosmic entity, and Stranger Things was indeed cosmic horror. And I'm pretty sure as much as the fans were eating this up, the writers were probably listening in on these theories, and the feedback was probably making them scratch their heads. And I think this was the turning point in the show, because the writers had to make a decision. Because when you reach a cosmic crossroad, you have two choices. You either keep the mystery going forward and you keep the threat cosmic, or you fall back on your foundations to make the threat tangible. And in season 3, they chose the latter. This is the season when the cosmic horror of Stranger Things fully breaks down. Now the threat establishes that it has a purpose. In the second episode, it possesses Billy with an intention, it has a strategy, and it communicates through conduits. It uses the victims to create a physical body. Now the threat occupies a physical space, and above all, the threat is now visible, and you can now give it a human meaning. The threat is not existential, it is merely a parasite. And from here forward, there was nothing the writers could do to change that. I mean, they tried to bring back shades of cosmic horror in the 4th season, probably peaking when the Mind Flayer is shown to originate from another world. But still, the damage was already done. It had lost the scope of a cosmic ending. The Mind Flayer had too much purpose by this point, and we had too much knowledge of what it was, which breaks the illusion of cosmic horror. A cosmic entity isn't just unknown, it is unknowable. But I guess what I'm trying to emphasize here with the example of the Mind Flayer is the overarching issue with cosmic horror. A lot of filmmakers delve into this subject with the intention of creating something vast and mysterious. But the problem is, they never fully commit to it. The Mind Flayer borrows a lot from classic forms of cosmic horror. It does have a Cthulhu kind of presence, especially in the earlier seasons, but when they reached a certain point, they just didn't know what to do with such a monster. And I can't fully blame them, because it is indeed the problem with the cosmic. You just don't know how to fully visualize this fear. At the end of the day, cinema is a revealing medium. You show faces, and it defines structures and spaces, and it clarifies cause and effect. This is the basic framework of a visual story. But cosmic horror requires you to do the exact opposite. It hides, withholds information, breaks causation, and above all, it denies the human resolution. All of which are things that are incredibly difficult to pull off visually. So you break things down, you try to rationalize, and by doing that, it becomes paradoxical. It stops being existential. And this is why the Mind Flayer in season 5 feels very weak and flimsy. They show you something so mysterious and menacing at the beginning of the story, but by the time we get to the monster at the end of the road, it is physical, it is tangible, has clear weaknesses, and it allows a bunch of kids to take it down without enforcing any kind of fear upon them. Hardly cosmic stuff. But the cosmic horror problem is what's emphasized here. They created a monster too big for their own boots. The Mind Flayer, once identified by the fans as potentially cosmic, it was done for the writers. And after that, they could only write themselves into a corner, making mistakes every step of the way, slowly weakening the monster with every revealing mystery. And cosmic horror doesn't do that kind of stuff. And that's exactly how Stranger Things broke its own monster. And if I were to rewrite the script to make the whole story cosmic horror, or at least cosmic adjacent, I don't think I could do that in this video, but I am thinking of writing that script. Do let me know if you want to see that. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video then.